We are live.
Welcome in, Campo and Joe on a Friday. If you are just getting a notice on your phone, just pop on, say hello. Let's talk a little Jaguar football. It's Campo and Joe C from XL Primetime, my man, my head coach, Dave Campo, as we are ready to talk some Jaguar ball. Coach, I know you realize this. What am I talking about? I was going to say, I don't know if you know this, but last night was the official 4-week mark. This time in 4 weeks, we will be talking about the first round draft pick for your Jacksonville Jaguars. The countdown is on, my man.
Absolutely. And it's exciting because I think now everybody, including our listeners,
Yep.
are into the mocks and checking things out. And I think everybody, it's interesting because it's amazing how many of the fans out there know names. Obviously they don't study; they just look at the names on the chart most of the time. But yeah, it's an exciting time. I think this is going to be one of those drafts that are really, really, really important for what we're going to do going forward with the Jags.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question that I think everybody you talk to, everybody I talk to, 1010, whenever we interact with all of our listeners, they're all basically just jonesing for what the next look of this football franchise is going to be, what they're going to be able to construct through the free agency, through the draft pick. And now, how about this, Coach? It's 1010, okay? We are 1010 XL, but they had 10 signings, including the latest one, which was Fred Johnson, and then 10 in the draft. And so let's just see if they can work with 1010 and turn this into a new product, something good.
Well, I think we're a positive factor on that. Let's get that going.
All right, so let's at least lay out a few things. And you guys are more than welcome to jump in the chat anywhere you find us. Whenever Yoda sends out the text or tweet, I should say, the post on X or wherever else, just jump in the chat. We appreciate you guys just kind of maybe setting aside a little time on Friday morning. If you're in the office, if you're working out, whatever you're doing, just hang out with us and throw some questions our way as we talk Jaguar football. So last night, we watched some Sweet 16 ball. A month later, we're going to be talking about the first pick of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So what has happened, Coach, over the last handful of weeks? Well, Cam Ward had his pro day. Everybody was just wowed with his skill set. We know that he is the talk of the top of the draft, and it comes down to Tennessee making a decision to go number one with him. They set aside time to put together a private workout with him. But Cleveland did the exact same thing. Jimmy Haslam and those guys sent a team down to Coral Gables to check him out as well. Then you've got the New York Giants signing Russell Wilson. And you've got the talk of maybe Shedeur Sanders would be their backup guy. Bottom line is, from last week when we were getting together to now, there's more likelihood in your mind that two quarterbacks are going in the first, say, 2 or 3 picks?
Yeah, I really think that's a direction that somebody's going to go in there. They're going to take 2 for sure. I just saw a mock the other day where Jackson Dart was in there. They went 1, 2, 3. But I think the signing of Russell Wilson kind of negates that a little bit, although they're picking 3. So you never know. But I will say this. I'm a Miami fan. You know that. I coached at Miami, national championship at Miami. I've watched Cam Ward probably, and Colorado, actually, Shedeur. Mm-hmm. I haven't watched Jackson Dart as much as those 2 guys. And there's no doubt in my mind that Cam Ward has got the tools and the poise and the things necessary to be a number 1 pick. And I think that's the way it's going to go. The one weakness I see with him, and I can't find a lot of weakness, but the one weakness I see in him is that he's a little bit of a riverboat gambler at times. He will overestimate his ability, but that's something that can be harnessed with a good coaching staff. And I just feel Tennessee's made the decision that we need to move on from Levis.
Yeah. Will Levis, the experiment right now, has failed. And one of the worst things you can do is reach for a guy, put your faith in him, build an offense around him, and then find out in a short amount of time that it's just not going to work. Now, he was not a first-round draft pick, but he was a high second-round draft pick. and they said goodbye to an expensive contract in Ryan Tannehill. And they basically said, hey, you're going to be our guy. They bring in Brian Callahan. They hire him as an offensive guy to basically take one big swing with Will Levis, and it didn't work out this past year. We all know that. And so now they've got to make a decision. And for the life of me, I can't imagine them going Abdul Carter over Cam Ward. They're going to try and make you think that, but that ain't going to happen.
Well, first of all, I think those two guys, those two are probably the decision maker right there. But I'm with you. And, the interesting thing is I jumped back to the Cowboys when we first got there. Mm-hmm. We had Troy Aikman, first pick in the draft. And Jimmy took Steve Walsh from the University of Miami in the supplemental #1 pick, which is kind of what you would have if you take Cam Ward, mm-hmm. and then you have Levis sitting there. Somebody will move to Levis somewhere along the line, and you'll get some picks for him if he were to move on. And that's kind of what Jimmy had in mind, mm-hmm. that there was a little bit of competition. But in reality, we ended up getting 2 #1s and a 2, I think, out of Steve Walsh. So, I can't see them not taking Cam Ward there.
Yeah, it seems like the most important piece of any football team, this is a no-brainer to say it, is that quarterback. You can have a lot of other good things, a dominant defense, great run game, all this other stuff, but you have got to have that guy. And back to your point about whether or not he's a bit of a gambler, whether he's a bit of a risk taker, as well as I do, Coach, you can become a playmaker with confidence if you make all the right decisions. Just think of Pat Mahomes. He's constantly improvising and yet can make play after play after play. Or you could be a guy, like you said, hey, if you take too many chances, you're going to be exposed. They're going to catch on to you. They're going to figure you out quickly. And I don't know which way Cam Ward goes, but I like the personality of the player. I don't necessarily like the fact that he's going to come into the AFC South and bring that attitude and charisma and maybe playmaking ability up to Nashville. But it could go either way with him because he has the skill set to be a superstar.
Yeah, and really, you look at Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes will throw an interception or 2 around, mm-hmm. because, that the ability to make plays kind of sets you up to make a few bad ones. Now, obviously, you try to stay away from as many of the bad ones as you can, and I think that's something that can be developed, to be honest with you, just, with a good coaching staff. So it's going to be interesting to see, and I'm not happy about him coming into the AFC South because I think he's a pretty darn good player, to be honest with you.
All right, so let's at least throw some ideas out there with the 5th pick overall. Jaguar fans, if you are on StreamYard with us, you can throw an idea of where you think the top of the draft is going to go, where you'd like to see the Jaguars land with that 5th pick overall. Now, we went through a few of them on Campo and Joe earlier this week with the Mike Tannenbaum forecast in the first round, the Pete Prisco mock. There are plenty of other ones. Chris Trapasso had done one that had Will Campbell coming to the Jaguars. Now I'm looking at a 3-round mock, and this is Josh Edwards, CBS Sports, and he did this yesterday and kicked out the top of the draft, and then we will mention the 2nd and the 3rd round draft picks that he made. And a couple of things that I think most Jaguar fans are looking at right now, Coach, is the depth of certain positions. So Mason Graham has been talked about a lot with his football team, but do they already have a couple of 3 techniques that they hope can make plays for them this year? And is it a deep enough defensive tackle draft that they might go later in the draft and either get a 3 or a 1 technique? Just spend a minute on that before I give the viewers and listeners some of the ideas of what these mocks look like.
Well, I like Mason Graham. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, I think the guy has got some of the traits that some of the better combination run pass interior linemen have in the league. The Donalds and the Joneses and the Carters that are in the league. I'm not comparing them. I'm just saying that he has some of those traits. He's got the quickness, the explosion. He's an ex-wrestler. He's got great hands. He's got great instincts to get off blocks. He's a disruptor. So I would be happy with that pick personally, even though I think Mason Smith has some of the things that you're looking for from a developmental standpoint with the Jags right now. So that's the first thing. Now, I think there's a number of situations that could occur based on the fact that the quarterbacks go first. What happens if Travis Hunter is there? What happens if they decide, hey, the corner position, maybe Will Johnson or Hunter is more important at this point? Or do they go with an offensive tackle that's kind of a combination guy like Membo? Those are the things that I think we have to see where their thoughts are at that pick before we can go to number 2 and number 3, because I think that will make a difference.
Yeah, you mentioned Will Johnson. He's a guy that went from a turf toe injury to now a hamstring injury, is not part of the pro day up in Michigan, and a guy that was thought very highly of at the cornerback position. Now Travis Hunter, we all know how much people are in love with this guy. So the unicorn that can play cornerback and wide receiver has moved up in a lot of people's minds, well ahead of Will Johnson. Anyway, Will Johnson admitted that he had torn ligaments in his toe, and he hadn't played for Michigan since October, I believe, Coach. We're talking he only played 6 games. He missed a bunch, and then ultimately didn't do anything at the combine, and then now is not going to run with this pro day because of a hamstring injury. And I don't know whether one caused the other one to happen, not quite sure. But anyway, Will Johnson's falling just a little bit, so we'll see what happens with him. All right, so with the 3-round mock that we're looking at, Cam Ward, no surprise, he goes number 1. Then Abdul Carter goes second to the Cleveland Browns, who obviously still are looking at their quarterback quandary with Deshaun Watson injured again. Shedeur Sanders goes to the New York Football Giants, 3rd. 4th pick, it's Travis Hunter. He goes to New England. And we can debate whether or not New England is going to go in that direction, but it's certainly possible because Drake May is looking for that talented weapon, and they would love to do something on the defensive side. I don't know whether that's Mike Vrabel-esque going with Travis Hunter 4th overall as opposed to picking a lineman. But this is interesting, Coach. After Travis Hunter comes off the board, Josh Edwards has Jalen Walker going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. What do you think?
Well, I like Jalen Walker. I mean, I think Jalen Walker is one of those guys that can play a couple positions. I think he can play off the ball and on the ball as a linebacker. Obviously, it depends on how good they feel he is, because in my mind, he's a guy that's in the mix because of the fact that we need pass rush. And if they do go with a guy like Jalen, then there will be to me, he'd have to be able to be an off-line linebacker and a rush guy, because you would interchange him with Walker, our Walker, Trayvon Walker, to where he would kick inside at times on 3rd down. I don't see them going in that direction. I see them taking an edge type guy in one of the later rounds. But if they went that way, I think he's a really good player. There's no question about it. And he gives them kind of a dual situation like Travis Hunter does, in my mind.
Yeah, I look at him, and I look at a 6'1", 250-pound guy, and it's just another guy that I do believe can create some pressure off the edge, but I just don't see him playing there that often. The off-the-ball possibility, I guess I would be looking at, I would be licking my chops if Abdul Carter was an off-the-ball guy that could walk up to the line of scrimmage. Jalen Walker, I just don't see it. Here's one of our viewers, Matt, basically saying, Jalen Walker at number 5, that's dumb. He won't be a difference maker in the NFL. I don't know whether he will or not. I know there's been a lot of good Georgia Bulldogs that have walked off of the defensive side of the ball in Athens and walked into NFL uniforms, and they've been pretty dang good. I just don't know if he 100% fits into what Jacksonville needs right now.
Yeah, and I don't see that pick. Like I said, I don't see them going in that direction. But again, they're making judgments. If you look at him as just an athlete and a player, he's pretty darn good. But I don't see them doing that. I see them taking a rusher later in the draft.
By the way, he says draft Genty. uh, y'all think too old school, out of date philosophy, wanting D-line and cornerback. Really? Is that right? You'd rather have a running back, okay? Just because you talk about recency bias, you just saw a guy last year in Philadelphia and Saquon Barkley just bust off a huge season, and all of a sudden, a running back is now back in the conversation as a top 5 position pick. They have a couple of running backs that they have invested in, and even though Genty may be a special player, I don't see him going in that direction at all.
Yeah, I don't see that. I think, first of all, I'm a Boise State guy too. I coached there. I think I've coached everywhere in the country, actually. But Genty obviously is a really, really talented guy. There's no question about it. And, we did one in Dallas, not when I was there, but, the choice was Ramsey or our running back that was there.
Zeke. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they went with the running back.
Yeah.
At that position. And I think it was number 5 or 6, right, for Ramsey?
Yeah, it was Zeke. I believe Zeke went right before.
Yeah, and it goes to my thing that when you have an opportunity and you have a special guy, you take the guy that can score touchdowns for you. Mm-hmm. So that's the only thing that puts Genty, I guarantee he's a top 10 pick. And I think the running back is coming into play more, but I don't see us going in that direction either.
Yeah, I watched his workout yesterday with the pro day for Boise State, and he is impressive.
I watched it as well.
He instantly reminds you of Maurice Jones-Drew. He is hammered to the ground. He's just squat strong and can drive through people and does have some quicks to him, that suddenness that you want to see. I would love to have him, but they already have that position, at least right now, kind of marked off. I
think what you see is, obviously they're going to have a pecking order of guys on the board. And if somebody wants to move up and they feel like there's a guy that we can get a little later in the round, in the first round or whatever, that can happen too. But I don't see, if they stay at 5, I can't see them picking him, to be honest.
All right, so let's hit a couple of other things. We're going to work our way back to 5, but I at least wanted to give a little bit as far as what Edwards went with after that 5th pick overall. Mason Graham comes off the board next. Mimbow, the big offensive lineman, comes off the board, going to the Jets at 7. Then Will Johnson does go to Carolina, at least according to this mock. Tet McMillan goes next. And so when you're looking at the first 9 or 10 picks, Ashton Genty actually goes 10th to the Chicago Bears in this mock. And you can look at Chicago. They've been definitely trying to fix things line-wise to make sure that they give their quarterback, Caleb Williams, the best chance to succeed. You put a guy in the backfield that defenses have to respect. It's certainly going to help them. But anyway, he has him going 10th right now.
First of all, I'm sure that's pretty close, to what the NFL teams have, because, all of those guys are pretty darn good football players and help somebody right away. And I think that's, obviously it depends on whether we move or not, which guys come into play. Right. I personally think that Warren, the tight end from Penn State, I personally think he should be in the top 10, because I think he might be better than Tet McMillan as far as a playmaker is concerned and ability at his position. Yeah. So there's guys, when you're in that top 10, I'll take any of those guys, to be honest with you. But again, I don't see us reaching down unless we can move back and get something for it.
All right, let's go to one from Jason, and this goes back to your Mason Graham thought that you wouldn't have any problem if he was the guy chosen. He says that there's a lot of Mason Graham doubters. I don't get it. Why do you think that is, Coach?
I think it's because he has, first of all, everybody looks at 295 as small, for a defensive lineman. And really he's up to 306. So I think that he has the ability frame-wise to get stronger and bigger. I think that's the issue. If there's any issue at all, for example, in our case, do we need a nose more than we need a 3 technique?
Yeah.
And I think that will come into play as well. That's why you can't just say, oh, Mason Graham's guaranteed. We're taking Mason Graham at that position, but I would like him because of the traits that we talked about. I don't know why people wouldn't like him other than the size factor. And the other thing is, Leon Searcy mentioned this one on the Primetime show, on your show, about the fact that he only had 3.5 sacks this year. Well, that doesn't bother me because he does everything else, and he's got the quickness and the hand movement and all those things to be a good inside rusher.
Yeah. I'd like to see that one position I addressed either in the second or the third round. There's not a guy necessarily at the tip top of this draft board that you would say, hey, we need to spend on that one position. But I do think it's hugely important, since you are going to be trying to work Mason Smith, Eric Armstead, some combination play-wise of those two guys at that 3 technique. But the other part of Mason Graham, and at least what I feel like you agree with this, is that everyone says, this guy's got the intensity. He's got the ability to shine in certain situations against the rush game and against at least interior blockers that he can penetrate and get to the quarterback a little bit. And they need to find those types of guys to start to build that defensive line. You need Josh Hines Allen and Trayvon Walker. Whoever you pick, those two guys, 41 and 44, need to prosper off the edge by the guys that you decide to put in the middle.
I think it comes down to if they're convinced that that's a position we want to go with at number 5, okay, I think it comes down to who is Mason Smith. If they look at Mason Smith and they say, look, we can fix him to where he's that guy, then they don't go in that direction.
Yeah.
In my opinion, because I've watched Mason Smith enough to think that he's got the tools to be that kind of a player, a guy that can rush the passer, but he actually is a little bit stronger as far as pushing at that position. Now, I don't think he's quite as quick and explosive and instinctive, and that's where Mason Graham comes in my mind.
Yeah, Robert mentions that Grant will fall late first or early second. That's kind of where most people see him.
Yeah.
Talking about Kenneth Grant, a monster of a man, 340 pounds, played right next to Mason Graham. Between those two for Michigan, they were definitely dominant. And I do like that guy. There's another one that, you're trying to figure out who can carry the weight, coach, who can man the middle, take on a double team, at least occupy those blockers enough where your linebackers can make plays or someone right next to him, left or right of him, can make plays. But they need that space eater, that savage of an interior defensive lineman that can start to wreak havoc.
Yeah, I think that's a position that we will definitely look at. Yeah, and I think Grant Nolan, some of those guys are pretty good football players. Harmon, I think really they're gonna look to that. Because they have not addressed the interior at all. And I can't see them saying that Armstead is the answer going forward. I think for this year, he might go in there and make a difference, as far as the abilities in there. And I'm not just talking about a one technique. I'm talking about an interior defensive lineman. And so, I wouldn't have a problem at all with Grant at number 2, especially if we don't take Mason Graham at number 1, at the 5th pick.
Yeah, here's another one that's chiming in. Mason Graham, solid player. The Jags haven't had a defensive tackle that could cause double teams in a long time. And it also helps the secondary getting if they can get to the quarterback faster. 100% agree. And it's something that we've talked about a ton. This past year, they handed out in the offseason a huge contract to 2 key defensive players. They gave Josh Hines Allen, we know, the bank. They gave Tyson Campbell a lot. And both of those guys need to play better. Josh Hines Allen needs that interior guy to be able to start to be a little more productive off the edge. He did not have a very good year when you look at the money that was doled out to him. Then you look at Tyson Campbell. he has not made enough plays. He's not made enough sudden change, pick off the ball, hand it back to his offense type of plays. But if they can increase some pass pressure, and that does mean Josh Hines Allen and whoever they have interiorly, they've got to get to the quarterback for Tyson Campbell and let's just say Travis Hunter to start making plays in the secondary.
And that's why I think Mason Graham comes in that position. And to be honest with you, I think people are really honestly underrating Trayvon Walker.
Mm-hmm.
Because, look back, this better than I do. How many guys have had double-digit sack for the Jaguars 2 years in a row?
Yeah. There has not been a back-to-back double-digit guy wearing teal and black.
So when you look at Trayvon Walker, if you put him in free agency, I guarantee you there would be an onslaught of people trying to get Trayvon Walker because Trayvon Walker is a darn good football player. So let's give him somebody inside that can help him and can give those two guys on the edges an opportunity, get somebody flushed out to where they can make some plays.
Yeah, there's no question. The direction of this defense, the passion with which they play, none of this stuff has been fostered properly by these coaches. Between Mike Caldwell and Ryan Nielsen, we're talking about ultimately just disastrous performances when it comes to the coordinator on the defensive side. Horror stories, which I know, Coach, about we'll get to it tomorrow, that type of stuff, going back to Mike Caldwell. And then Ryan Nielsen. Just, my gosh, man, there were too many fails in terms of just teaching the way to play the game, how to play it properly at a high level with assignment-rich savvy along the defensive line, and none of that happened. So let me see if I can make sure I get
let me say one more thing.
Yeah.
We also had a situation last year where Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen were not on the field.
Yeah.
We had just guys, Armstead and Abdullah, on the edge together at the same time. That should never happen.
No, it's ridiculous what they did. And the bottom line is, we all know this as football fans, people who cover it, watch it. If you do not affect the passer, if you do not get him off his spot, make him uncomfortable, make him move out of that pocket, you don't stand much of a chance in terms of holding down offenses. Secondary stars, they're not going to be stars because they're not going to be able to hold that coverage that long because the pass rusher is not getting to the quarterback. We're going to find out what Anthony Campanile can do with this team. So here's what Daniel Griffiths put out. He basically said, he just put some nice numbers together, but this is kind of interesting, Coach. I want to know what you think about this. You've played a ton of zone and man in your life, your coordinator days, your secondary coaching days. So he pointed out the heavy use of zone coverage. Packers ranked second in zone coverage.
Correct.
78.3% of the time. The Jags, meanwhile, were 30th in zone coverage. They did it just a little over half of their defensive calls. Also pointed out a low blitz percentage. Green Bay was 31st in that category, Jacksonville 32nd. And then also pointed out just the idea of where the influence can come from on that defensive side, be it Vic Fangio, be it Jeff Hafley, with a couple of guys that were brought in from that Green Bay Packer side. So what do you think when you hear some of those numbers as what Anthony Campanile can bring and what type of player they're looking for?
Well, first of all, I would say from that standpoint, if you're going to play a lot of zone, you have to have the pass rush because there's holes in there. So the more pass rush you have, the more zone you can play because obviously it makes them throw the ball quicker. Guys don't have an opportunity to get into the open spaces as quickly.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a factor as things go along. When I watched what they did in the zones a year ago here, we had no idea as far as passing guys off and doing things that you have to do to be able to play good zone defense. When you watch Green Bay's defense, a couple of things stand out to me is that their corners, what we call slow bailed a lot. because they had good pass rush and guys, they didn't put them in pedal situations, which you have to be better to do. They took advantage of what their guys could do. I think that's one thing that Campanile will bring to us, is that he is one of those guys that looks at the guys that he's got and he fits the guys into, the scheme into what he has. Yeah. And to me, they also are a match zone team, meaning that they're going to be closer to routes. And so I think the combination, they need the pass rush in order to play as much zone as they're playing. And I also felt in watching them, when they blitzed, they got home. They didn't blitz a lot, but when they did blitz, they got home, which means they know protections and they know how to attack the offense. So that's what I'm looking for this year.
You mean unlike the Jags, who did not find gaps that they could be successful in getting to the quarterback?
Correct.
All right. I want to hit a couple of more on the mock and then a couple more comments as we're looking at the Jaguars. The countdown is on, less than a month before the first round pick is made. This time, a month from now, they're going to be looking at that second and third round on a Friday night, which is just awesome. So Josh Edwards, CBS Sports, he did the 3-round mock, and he puts in that 36th spot the receiver, Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State. I'm not in love with that. I want to see them add to their wide receiver core. He is certainly a decent prospect, no question about it. He's among the top 50 picks, but that's who he has in the second round, Coach. And then in the third round, when you get into pick 70 for the Jaguars, he goes with Deion Walker, a big defensive tackle out of Kentucky. And he's another big human being. He is a massive 6'7", 330 pounds, a lot like Kenneth Grant. Watched a little bit of his tape. This is a deeper defensive tackle class, and he looks good, looks just grown man strong, but also just stood up so fast. And you know how offensive linemen will feast on a guy like that.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, I think that taking a receiver with a second pick is smart, in my opinion, because I think there's some guys there, guys like Burden, guys like guys, Egbuka, whatever his name is, he may be there. I think it depends on who they take with the first pick. If they take a defensive lineman with the first pick, I'd be okay with a receiver or a defensive back at that second position. That's what I would look at, because I think there's a couple of guys at that position. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Coach. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're good.
I was just looking to see if I could find Bucky Brooks's breakdown of the top wide receivers. And Ted McMillan's definitely getting a lot of love, a lot of attention, which is no surprise. He ran a sub-5 40. He's a big 6'4", 220-pounder. So it's easy to assume that guy is going to command a lot of attention. All right, here's Bucky's. So he has, just as far as the wide receivers are concerned, and I guess he's classifying Travis Hunter as a cornerback with these rankings. And he goes Ted McMillan first, Matthew Golden second, Egbuka third, Luther Burden fourth, Isaiah Bond fifth.
There you go. That's it. I love that group. I would take any of those guys with the second pick if I was looking for a receiver. The only thing with Bond is he's a smaller guy. Bond is but fast. And so, the others are pretty good sized guys. And it may be that they feel Diami Brown, the kid they brought in, is an outside guy. They may go with a Bond. I mean, he's a scary dude now. He can run. He's got explosion, good receiver. So I would be happy with another receiver. We're not in good shape at receiver. There's no question about it.
Yeah,
we're probably in better shape at corner than we are at receiver, in my mind. Even though we have a number one in Thomas, I think if with Lewis coming in at nickel. And I think Jurian can play out there. I don't feel too bad with the guys that we've got out there at the corner Although if you got a good one, take him. You know what I mean? But I think that receiver would be a good pick at that spot.
Yeah, what's great is that if it were to fall properly at 5, it's one guy answering both bells.
Exactly.
It's the
No
cornerback
question.
and Travis Hunter and a splash maker offensively.
I'm headed to the podium right now with the pick right
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, there's no question. Bucky does say, as far as Igbuka is concerned, can create space, separate from defenders between the hashes, natural pass catcher, soft hands, polished receiving skills. So he likes him. Matthew Golden, explosive, good wiggle, difficult wideout to defend in space. So he likes him a lot too. So those are a handful of those guys.
What does
that
he
had
say
up
with
there.
Bond? What does he say on Bond?
Let's see. I don't think he broke. Actually, he said Isaiah Bond, a chain mover, polished game that fits any scheme, can win with speed or skill as a dynamic route runner.
Yeah.
And short area burst. You know, I love the lingo that we get during draft
Yeah,
season.
exactly.
All right, let's get to a couple more that we got off the chat. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us. That's for sure. We'll do it every Friday on StreamYard. Robert says trade back to the Jets or the Raiders. Get some capital and then go get T-Mac, Ted McMillan, or Warren. He mentions Tyler Warren or Mimbow. And so, look, if they are going to be aggressive and try and move out of that 5th spot, just depending on how things go, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I am as well. And I'll tell you right now, I've watched Ted McMillan and I've watched Warren from Penn State. I'm not sure I wouldn't go with Warren. I mean, the guy is so smart and instinctive and does so many things. The only concern in my mind is that they got rid of one that we had that was a flex. This guy's a flex. He can play anywhere. He might be more of a playmaker than Ted McMillan is when you really come down to it. But I don't know in the scheme that, whether or not he fits what Cohen wants to do. That's the only thing. But if we took Warren, I would not be I would be happy with that because I think he's a great player in the making.
Yeah, they got to figure out where the trigger points on this offense are going to come from. They've got a good one in Brian Thomas Jr. They're going to find out if they can make Brenton Strange more of a Cade Otton tight end type that Liam Cohen had success with down in Tampa Town this past year. All right, Coach, we got to wrap it up. We love that we've got our guys kind of loading up on a Friday morning, getting ready for this draft. We will do Campo and Joe on Tuesday, our regular podcast. It will kick out Tuesday afternoon, and then StreamYard on the social channels here on Friday. Coach, always fun, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And as it goes along here, I'll be a little bit more watching more guys. And I think we can get a little bit more, even in depth as we go down the draft a little bit. But this is fun. I always enjoy it. Absolutely.
I love it. So I will see this man on XL Primetime later. So you guys definitely tune in 2 to 4. And we're actually going to be talking college ball along with the Jags because we've got Cersei's Sweet 16, the mythical matchups. And he's got your 87 Hurricanes against the 93 Knowles. So we'll be breaking that bad boy down. I know. I'm looking at you. You got some notes, don't you?
I'm ready. I'm ready for that one.
All right. That's awesome. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. StreamYard every Friday. Hope you guys make it part of your Friday mornings as we steam through the draft season and get ready for the draft coming up. Yoda, Jacob, good job as always. We appreciate our producer for making us all sound and look halfway decent. We will talk to all of y'all next week.